Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Council. I'd like to formally declare the meeting open. The prayer of Council will be read by Pastor Raggy Atella from the Liverpool Presbyterian Arabic Church. If you could all be upstanding, and that will be followed by the National Anthem.
And a privilege for me to attend with you today. I am Raggy Atalla. I am the Presbyterian Arabic Church leader here in Liverpool. This is first time for me to be here, so I feel shaking, but I am sure that you will encourage me to read this acknowledgement, and we'll pray together after that. I'll start with the acknowledge of the country. Before we begin proceedings, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and their ancestors, past and present, the Capragol clan of the Darug nation. I would acknowledge that the land was assessed by people of the Darawal and Daruk nations. The affirmation of Council, we affirm our hope and dedication to the good government of our city and the well-being of all of Liverpool's residents, no matter their race or creed. Tonight we affirm our hope for sound decision making by Council, which will improve the quality of life in our city. We express our expectations and best wishes for Australia, our nation's future, the mayor, councillors, and staff of Council, and all those associated with good government in Liverpool. Now I'm going to share you the prayer. I'll pray for God. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for all you have done for us and for all you have given us, especially your beloved only Son, who has been crucified and died for our sins to set us free, and he gives us peace and life. We acknowledge that every blessing in our life comes from you, Lord, as you are the source of all blessings. You are God, the Creator, and the Great One who gives us strength and power to live and survive. We know we cannot do anything without you, and you have the sovereignty and high control with authority over all creatures, including us. We thank you, Lord, for protecting us from all dangers, wars, and troubles that exist in so many parts of our world. We thank you, our Lord, as you bless our country and have made it in a safe place, as a safe place for many people who have suffered war, forced displacement, evacuation, discrimination, or abuse. Many have come here to Australia looking for a better life and a future for themselves and their families. And thankfully, you have brought them into our blessed country in your grace to give them the chance to find the better life they were looking for, to enjoy and experience justice, peace, equality, unity, and freedom. Thank you, our Lord, that you have founded this country on the Christian ethics of love, fairness, respect, and support. We thank you, Lord, for the various churches that bring people to you. We pray for more blessings to our beloved and blessed country, Australia, that you, according to your goodwill, to continue keeping us in your safe hands and protect us from any danger that could threaten us. We pray for all Australians, including those who suffer from loneliness, stress, depression, and those who have experienced trauma, to recover and to find peace in you. Help those who are new in Australia to adapt into our culture and become productive members of our community. We thank you, Lord, for our government and political leaders. We pray for our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, and for his ministers, that you would give them the guidance and wisdom to lead the country well. We pray also for the opposition parties and leaders, that all of them can work together with our government to improve the life of all Australians. We finally pray for our council here in Liverpool, and especially for the meeting tonight, that you guide and help our honored members to plan, work, and lead us for the best of their ability to achieve good for the benefit of our people and community. We pray to you in the name of our Lord Jesus and our Savior. Listen to our prayers, Lord. Amen. Thank you very much.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair. Beneath our radiant solemn cross, we'll toil with hearts and hands to make this commonwealth of ours renowned of all the lands. For those who've come across the seas, we've boundless place to share. With courage let us all combine to advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Thank you, everybody. If you could all be seated. I'm conscious that Councillor Caliander is in traffic and still trying to get here on our road system, so she's not an apology. Do we have any apologies though? No, we wouldn't. That'd be the only one. Condolences. I have one, Council, and it's for Miss Beverly Wilson. Beverly Wilson passed away peacefully on the 17th of February 2019. She was a member of the Liverpool Netball Association, the LNA, for 37 years, serving as part of the executive. In 2007, Beverly received the Order of Liverpool Award in the Gold Companion category. In 2013, she was part of the LNA's executive when the association was awarded Council's Australia Day Sports Award and recognised for its unwavering devotion to sporting pursuits in Liverpool. On behalf of all of the Liverpool City Council, I express my deepest condolence to Beverly Wilson's family and friends at this very difficult time. I'm sure that Beverly's enthusiasm for sport and a community spirit will live on in all those who had the pleasure of knowing her. May she rest in peace. Does anybody wish to add to the condolence? If you could all be upstanding for a minute's silence. Thank you, everybody. I formally move the condolences. Thank you, Councillor Chitty. I'll put it, those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item on the agenda is the previous minutes.
Move that way. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shilton.
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Any discussion? I'll put it, those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Any declarations of interest?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to declare a pecuniary interest in CONF01 BMX Track Power Park, an organisation mentioned in the site and contributes to the Your Liverpool Community magazine that I publish. I will leave the room.
Okay. What number was that? I'm sorry, Councillor.
Is CONF01, the BMX Track Power Park.
It's all right, I wrote 02. Thank you very much for that.
Madam Mayor, in relation to item CONF02, I am an ordinary member of the organisation referred to therein. According to Regulation 62, I don't even have to declare that. I have no officers, but I declare it anyway, non-pecuniary, non-significant, and I won't be leaving the room.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Shelton. You've got your forms and everything? Okay. Okay, he's handing them out as we speak. Thank you. Well, the next part of our agenda is very special. We have a group of high achievers in our midst and probably future leaders in our community, and I'd like to formally welcome them and welcome their family members as well. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet and their ancestors past and present, the collaborative clan of the Darug Nation. I also acknowledge this land was accessed by the peoples of the Dharawal and Darug Nation. Well, here we are in the council chambers in our February meeting, and tonight we are hosting a number of high school certificate high achievers who are going to receive certificates of recognition this evening. These students either live in the Liverpool LGA or attend our local schools. We have students from Thomas Hassel Anglican College, Good Samaritan Catholic College and Amity College this evening. They have achieved either an ATAR higher than 95 or they have ranked in the top 5 in New South Wales in their subjects. I know that I speak for the rest of our councillors when we say how proud we are of you. I was saying at a function recently, I was just happy as a mum if my children finished high school. So you've done very, very well. And I'm sure your parents are very happy you're over that hill because it's a big stress on the family and I'm sure you needed a lot of support. The high school certificate is a big chapter in many students' lives and now we cannot wait to see what you will do in your future. To our high school certificate graduates, I'm sure you know that you are no longer have to travel to high school, but also you don't have to travel far to go to uni. We have 3 major unis now in Liverpool, the University of Wollongong, Western Sydney University and the University of New South Wales, which is established at Liverpool Hospital. And when you graduate, I encourage you to keep Liverpool within your sights. I call it a city on the move, and it most certainly is. Many valuable employment opportunities across many fields are available now and most certainly into the future. To all of your family members, I actually say, well done and congratulations. It's a long haul putting your child through high school or through school, full stop. And university is the next big step. Your hard work and dedication in nurturing the next generation of leaders is inspirational to all of us. As I said, as a mother, I was just hopeful they'd finish high school. Also, pick up their dead washing, but 1 out of 2, yeah. But congratulations, it is a really marvellous event. I hope the students here don't take your dedication and commitment and love for granted because it is very, very difficult on families. But congratulations to everybody involved. Well done. And I think we should give them a round of applause, everybody. I'm going to hand out the certificates and at the end there'll be a photo of all the councillors and the students.
Madam Mayor, are you happy for me to take over at this point? Hello students, the Mayor is going to present you with your certificate. I'm going to read out your name and then if you could come down to the front where we'll get a photo. Andrew, can you keep me out of shot of the photo if you can there? I'm trying to squeeze over. So our first certificate is to Mirak Murmi from Amity College. Thank you. Congratulations. Our next certificate is to Zain Khan from Amity College. Zain unable to be here. So our next certificate is for Mithi Kaushal from Amity College. Congratulations. Our next certificate is for Saif Al-Ilham from Amity College. Congratulations. We have a certificate now for Adim Akpinar from Amity College. Congratulations. We now have a certificate for Isabella Hanna from Good Samaritan. Congratulations. We'd like to present a certificate to Carla Kanane from Good Samaritan. Congratulations, Carla. I'd like to now present a certificate to Nora Takriti from Good Samaritan. Congratulations. We have a certificate next for Rebecca Lynn from Thomas Hassel Anglican College. And our next certificate is for Gemma Navarrete from Thomas Hassel Anglican College. Congratulations. I believe that is all the attendees we have here today, just in case I'm checking the audience, certainly everyone on my list. If we'd be able to ask everyone to come forward for a photo with the Mayor and councillors, could I ask, could you join in the photograph so we can commemorate this moment? Thank you.
Can I just add another congratulations to everybody? And as I said, if people were going, I know our future is in very good hands, and we expect to see our future Liverpudlians contributing, I'm sure. And come and work for council, CEO said. So there you go. So congratulations again. Our public forum is now commencing. The next item on the agenda is a mayoral minute. I'll read. And the title is Re-establishment of the Sister City Relationship with Calabria. At council meeting on 26th of July 1993, a mayoral minute was presented that proposed establishment of a sister city relationship between Calabria and Liverpool. In part, this was proposed due to the community of Italians generally and Calabrians specifically who had made Liverpool their home. The motion was supported by council, and in November of that year, a formal agreement was signed between the two cities. Over the years of that agreement, there have been spasmodic connections between Liverpool and Calabria, and these included visits from dignitaries from Calabria to Liverpool and delegations from council visiting Calabria. In 2011, during my previous term as mayor, I visited Calabria at my own expense. In February 2015, council hosted a Calabrian delegation visiting Australia, and we had a morning tea at the Casula Powerhouse. The visiting group consisted of Father Rocco from St Francis of Paula Monastery in Calabria, Italy, and his religious assistant, also a journalist, Assunta Orlando. While in Sydney, Father Rocco conducted a mass for the Italian community devotees at St Francis of the Mount Carmel Church in Liverpool. At that time, the Calabrian delegates and local Italian businesses in attendance expressed a desire to re-establish the sister city relationship. In February 2016, Council resolved that officers were to reconnect with our sister city in Calabria and explore the opportunities to develop and enhance the cultural relationship between the cities in a way that mutually was beneficial, including a delegation from Council to Calabria. An invitation has now been received to participate in the Calabrian Sister City program, anticipating a visit to Rochella in early July 2019 for a cultural festival which includes the blessing of the fleet and other cultural activities. I'm therefore moving that we acknowledge the invitation and receive a more detailed report at the March meeting of Council on cultural connections between Rochella and Liverpool, and two, we provide an appropriate workspace to support the Sister City Committee that are part of the liaison with Calabria until such time as the visit is resolved. I formally move that.
Question, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
There was some fairly general discussion in months gone by about a sister city relation also with the state of Fiji. I wonder if anyone can just provide an update as to where that has gotten to.
Okay.
I'm just troubled about going further with one sister city relation. I know there's been talk, I'm not sure where it's got to, in relation to Fiji, indeed India as well. So I'm just wondering if someone can assist in that regard. Thanks.
Well, my understanding is, Councillor, that the Fijian sister city has not been formalised and it would be at its very early stages. This particular sister city is actually signed, sealed and delivered, so to speak. So they're two different situations. I think we could probably provide an update in the CEO update, or if anybody knows the information at this point, could give that information to councillors.
Just to slightly expand on that, the conversations have been in the very initial stages, and our intention was to follow up the conversations with the Rear Admiral on his return to Australia, which usually coincides with Fiji Day.
So it is the case that Sir Frank Bainimarama has been making overtures toward a...
He has made overtures, yes. but we haven't committed.
There's nothing been formally requested of council at this point, councillor. If something formal comes, then I'll obviously put it to council.
Okay, I'll formally move that. I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is EGRO 01.
Madam Mayor, I'd
Yes,
like
Councillor.
to move that we deal with NOM 03 in regards to the Coptic community before we continue with city economy and growth.
Yes, I'm happy to indulge you in that matter, councillor, but just so councillors are aware, there are a lot of financial implications in that particular motion, so take care not to breach any confidentiality in your discussions. That's my only suggestion at this time. Just got to find it and I'll be all yours. Councillor Ayed, the motion is in your name. You'd like to formally move that, I would gather?
Yes.
No, you're moving it on.
You're moving a motion?
I'm moving a motion, not the one that's in the book.
Right, what is your motion?
So I've given it to the typist already, and just to clarify with the councillors, it's the same motion that they received in the email, just with some added points.
Have councillors got this in hard copy? Have councillors got this in hard copy? Soft copy.
Done.
All right, well, just how about we have a 5-minute recess so the staff can print it and give it to you, and then we can give people some reading time as well. I'm reconvening council. The hard copy's on your desks, councillors. I'm hoping you've had some reading time. The motion is moved by Councillor Ayad and seconded by Councillor Chitty. Councillor Ayad, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. No. Yeah. Okay. The Coptic Orthodox Church has been put in a compromising position due to a dramatic price increase on land. In 2009, an agreement was made between Council and the Coptic Orthodox Church regarding the sale of this land. A valuation was done, put before the Church and accepted by both the Church and Council. An agreement was then made. The Church went on to raise money for this purchase. At no point over the past 10 years did Council explain that the sale price would be subject to change or a current valuation. The agreement was made and the valuation was current at that point in time. It would be disappointing and very disheartening if Council did not honour the original agreement and put the Church in such a compromising position. If an agreement was made, it should be honoured. I call on my fellow councillors to support this motion, the Church and the wider Coptic Orthodox community, and for the original agreement accepted by both parties, being the Coptic Church and Liverpool City Council, to be honoured. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers against? Any questions? Usually full of questions. No questions? Okay. No speakers for, no speakers against.
I'll speak for the motion as well.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes.
I am totally supportive of this particular motion. I've been following with great interest as this story unravelled. And I would just like to congratulate the Theodore Coptic Church on their outstanding collection of previous correspondence with Council. And I feel that if everybody did that, it would be a much more clearer situation for us all. So well done.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Yes, just quickly, I'd like to congratulate the father on the arrival of his new baby. So.
More sleepless nights, Father. Wait till they're 13. Okay, any other speakers? Any speakers against? Do you have your right of reply, Councillor Ed? No?
I'm okay, Madam.
I'll put it to
Thank you.
council. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it not unanimous. Okay, moving on. The next item is on, she's turning her page.
Move that way, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor.
I'll
I've just got to
second that,
move
thank
my
you.
papers around here, sorry. It's on page 64 is the recommendation. It's moved by Councillor Rhodes and seconded by Councillor Sheldon. Any discussion?
Mayor, just a quick question. I note in the report that the request for what the WA and Adelaide were doing, and it states here that we'll look into that and bring it. Does that then mean we need to, should council adopt any of those recommendations, then re-exhibit? Should we wait till this report is completed completely before we put it into play?
The council report itself notes that should council wish to bring another amendment to this, it could be adopted into the heritage strategy. The Adelaide and Perth models that you're looking at are technically grants programs, so we would have to publicly exhibit them under section 356 of the Local Government Act regardless, so that would serve for the purposes of public exhibition. However, should you prefer to wait, of course that's a matter for council to determine.
I won't get in the way of council doing its work, but I'll just note that I'll be voting against based on that. A request was made to bring back this strategy with that information. It's now been brought back without that information, and I won't support this strategy in its current form.
So I'm taking that as a speaker against. Thank you. Any other speakers? I'll put it. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried.
Can I be recorded as voting against, Madam Mayor?
Yes, certainly, Councillor.
Thank you.
Next item's on page 70.
Yes, I can move that way again, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes.
I have a question, if I may.
Councillor Hall. Yes, Councillor Sheldon. What's your question?
Just bear with me a moment, please. It's the flag and banner policy. No, sorry, I'll hold my...
On page
I'll have a question then, Mayor, if you don't mind.
Yes, certainly, Councillor.
And it refers back to the briefing session. Thank you for the briefing session on this. My concern still is with the Section 94, and we're a developer, may be able to do some works instead of paying a Section 94 contribution. Did I hear correctly, and was the answer yes to that in the briefing session?
Mr Moore, could you please answer that?
Certainly, through the CEO. Yes, it is possible to provide the funds that would have been paid as a Section 94 contribution within a VPA. But in the course of negotiating a VPA, we would always ensure that the correct amount of money was received.
Sorry, just on that, it's in relation to the Section 94, now called something else, 711. And the concern was we have a section or a 711 plan in place. My understanding from that briefing session was that should a developer come in and be able to, let's say, put a park on their land where we're supposed to be collecting money for a Section 94, they can then offset that instead of making a Section 94 contribution. Is that the case with the new 711 plans?
Through the CEO, nothing has changed with the new 711 plans. There are no new 711 plans. Section 94 has just been rebadged 711. Nothing changes in relation to the law as it stands for voluntary planning agreements through what we've done with this policy. It's always been possible to pay your Section 94 contributions through a VPA, but what we will do, as we've always done, is negotiate and consider any proposals like that on their merit, consider the impact that would have on the Section 94 plan and all of the funds that need to be collected to pay for the infrastructure in the Section 94 plan, so that we don't undermine in any way the intention of the Section 94 plan. So I think the short answer is yes, you can do it, but we'll have in place the right measures and safeguards to ensure it doesn't upset the Section 94 plan.
Any other questions, queries, speakers against? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item is on page 73.
I'll let Councillor Shelton ask his
Carnib
questions.
is moving. Seconder?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Yes, now, Councillor Sheldon, you had a question about banners.
Yeah, so in relation to that, on item 10 of the proposed policy, flag and banner designs are subject to council approval, which will be guided by the Liverpool LEP 2008. The first part is just how will the flag and banner policy be guided by the LEP? Is it as simple as this is a commercially zoned area, therefore it's got to be commercial flags and banners, this is residential, or is there something more to it than that? And the second part is, can we just say the current LEP rather than LEP 2008, which is about to die?
In quick order, you're correct. In your first assumption, it's around what can be exhibited in particular areas. And to the second, yes, it's a minor housekeeping change, and I can make that.
So if ever wound up moving that, so we just put that in.
Okay, Councillor Carnib's moving and Councillor Rhodes seconding. So you're happy with that small amendment, councillors? Okay. Any speakers against? Oh, yes, Councillor Haggerty. Go.
I am speaking for, but I have a couple of questions.
Yes, go for it.
Are we looking at expanding the list of sites where we got these flag poles? If we do that, then there's potential to obviously generate more income. So that's question one. I'll let you answer that.
In answer to your question, yes, in the street design policy, we'll be looking at the opportunity to increase the amount of banners across the LGA, and as well the type of street design that we'll bring into that, because we need to incorporate 5G over a period of time. And second to your question, the income we generate from the banners is fairly low and offsets the cost of council's banner production.
Several years ago there was some angst from the community, some controversy, let's say, about council promotional material hanging off cranes and banners at commercial building sites. Is that covered by this policy? And I guess should we, if it isn't, should we? Is it covered by another policy? If it isn't, do we want to?
This policy does not speak to that. This policy speaks to the flags and banners that hang off the official flag and banner poles. In relation to it was the Building Our New City things, and there is. Can I take that on notice, because there is a piece of legislation that actually talks to that question you're asking, but I don't have it on hand.
And third question, just around charities, not-for-profits, that kind of thing, is, I guess, I've come across a example where I guess council have been approached about putting some banners up and have supplied the cost, and I guess that group is not able to supply the cost. Do we need to have a provision in there where I guess council, quote unquote, sponsors the banners so that we can get some good, use the banners to promote good things, for example, organ and tissue donation?
I have also seen that email, councillor. There's two aspects to your question. One is the revenue foregone that council may generate from the use of the banner poles. That could be covered under the quick response grant or resolution of council. The second, which is actually the more material cost, is the cost of the installation of banners. Now, that is a cash cost to council. That doesn't mean that councillors may not still choose to allocate a sponsorship to offset those costs, but one is revenue foregone, very easy, and within my delegation to approve. The cash cost to council would be outside my delegation to approve, because it would fall over the $1,000 that I'm able to provide in cash.
May I, just on that comment, Councillor Haggerty, just with in regards to what you said, like organ and tissue donation, everyone here knows that this is something that's very close to my heart. My son had a kidney transplant. Donate Life usually does banners throughout Liverpool. Yeah, but they actually, I just feel that if council did it, it would take away from Donate Life's campaign. I mean, I'm open for council to support it, but Donate Life has a whole state campaign that they do. Then they air stories on TV. People share their personal stories, what they went through. They have these banners. They have stores in shopping centres, in local parks and at events. So I just don't want to take away from Donate Life's campaign, because it's a strong campaign and I'd love to council to support it, but I just don't want to take away from that.
Thank you, councillor, for that information through the chair. Any other information that people wish to raise?
Just a silly question, I think it is.
There's never
this
a
is
silly
advertising. Are these sites DA approved for advertising?
It's permissible to have not-for-profits and non-commercial and council events on the banner poles under our LEP and DCP. Commercial is not permissible. Mr Moore, I'm correct there, right? Yep.
Okay. Any other questions, queries? All right, I'm going to put it. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Next item's on page 104.
Can I ask a question and then possibly move a motion?
Certainly, you can ask a question and then...
DCP 2008, obviously 2008 means that it's 10 years old. 11 years old. When's the review for that taking place? Is it scheduled?
Mr Moore?
Through the CEO. It is scheduled to take place after we've completed the review of the LEP, although we haven't actually specified specific timeframes for that to happen, but that's when we'll do it, once the LEP review has been completed. Noting that some of the studies that we undertake for the LEP review will be very informative of changes that need to be made to the DCP.
Sorry, and I'm not sure of the workload here. Does it make sense to do it in conjunction with the LEP so that we know what can go where, instead of doing the LEP and then trying to get a DCP to match?
It does make sense to do that. In some respects that will be happening, because the studies, as I say, will really play to what needs to be in the DCP. And I guess there are elements that will be done in parallel, but it really is a question of resources and workload. There's a lot of effort that needs to be put into the LEP. That's the more significant set of planning controls, so we're focusing on that primarily.
Right, so in relation to this recommendation, which is about really the wood fire heaters, Council has previously adopted to not allow them in R1, 2, 3 and 4. What wording would you like to reverse that so that people can put a wood heater in based on those efficiencies as regulated in R1, 2, 3 and 4?
I think, through the CEO, the simplest thing to do, if that's the outcome you're looking to achieve, is just to not adopt any change to the DCP.
Right, can I move then that Council do not adopt any change to the DCP 2008?
Can we just specify in relation to new chapter 24 air quality, just so we're not tied?
I'm in total agreement of the point B 1 and 2, which is those efficiencies, but I think they're standards anyway, so it makes no difference. My concern is that we don't put a DCP in place where, if you've currently got a wood heater, that you can't replace it, so you've got a hole in the ceiling, or if you want to build a house that has a wood heater, as long as you meet those conditions, which you need to meet, you can put a wood heater in.
Councillor, can you bear with me a second? I'm just thinking about how to undo the standing resolution. Because I just want it off the books. No, because this was an addition to the DCP. It doesn't matter, there's standards that are effective. Okay. Councillor, we propose that your recommendation would be that Council receives and notes the report and does not adopt the change as resolved on Wednesday, 26th of August 2015. I think that'll do it nicely. Yep.
Are we a seconder?
I'll second it with an amendment to that, if I can.
Well, I think the mover would love to hear your amendment.
And okay, well, if the mover of the motion would also add in there as a second point that refer the DCP to a specific strategic planning meeting to be held, I'm thinking, no later than May, so councillors can contribute to resolving further updates and inclusions into the DCP.
I think it's premature.
The advice from the CEO is that would be extremely premature at this point, Councillor.
And obviously, taking the advice from the CEO through you, Chair, I don't have an issue with that. I mean, if it's a meeting where councillors can then contribute, obviously there's a long process in place. It's an initial look at that. Here are some ideas, and then, obviously you then take not take your time, but do what you need to do.
Councillors, as long as you appreciate that at the moment we're in the process of updating the LEP, the DCP becomes the secondary tool underneath that, and as you know, the LEP is a document that sits above the DCP. Of course, at any time, councillors can propose amendments to the DCP. My only concern would be that you're unlikely to see them effectively actioned until we're able to get further down the LEP work. That's my concern around prematurity, not about shutting off your capacity to debate and argue what's in the DCP.
Madam Mayor, can I ask a question in relation to this?
Yes, Councillor.
What is the timeframe on some of the studies that underlie this particular issue?
Through the CEO, and I might defer to Mr Smith because he's got these timeframes front of mind in relation to the LEP. But can you talk to the timeframes for the studies that need to be done to inform the LEP, please?
Certainly, through the CEO, the relevant studies are underway now, so a local housing strategy is underway. We've tendered that and it should be finalised by mid-April, but once we've reviewed that, we're looking at about May to meet the local strategic planning statement timeframes under the funding agreement with the department, and then we're also engaging employment land study, rural studies and other studies that are through the procurement process at the moment. So we're expecting mid-year right through this year to do those studies.
So if the councillor is happy to accept that as an amendment point 2?
Okay.
I'm happy to second it.
Okay, so the motion has a point 1 and a point 2. Everybody clear on it? Councillor, did you wish to speak to your motion? Councillor Chitty? Yes, Councillor Haggerty.
Okay, so I've got a motion a bit later around air quality, and in that one of the recommendations is that we actually do what's being proposed here. One of the main causes of air pollutants is these heaters. If I've currently got one of these heaters, I'm okay. If it breaks down, do I then have a hole in my roof, or can I then replace it with a compliant heater?
Under this proposed amendment, you would be prohibited replacing your heater in R1 to R4 zones. However, you would be permitted to do so in the rural zones as long as you met the statutory requirements.
Well, only one clarification there, CEO, that the DCP won't prohibit you from doing that. It will strongly discourage you from doing that simply because it is beyond the power of a DCP to prohibit that.
Okay.
I'll speak for if no one's got any questions. And I think that was a great question in relation to why we should not proceed with this amendment. If you've currently got a heater, it breaks down, and I understand the DCP will strongly recommend, encourage you not to, which means that you're not going to be able to do it, but pull it out, let people, if they choose to put a wood heater or replace their wood heater, let them do so. There's restrictions in place on what can and can't be used for a replacement. There's standards across Australia, I believe, or is it just New South Wales, that need to be met. If somebody wants, sorry, with all respect, and I know we've got issues and we're talking about air quality and everything else, if someone wants to put a wood fire heater that are sold all over the place in a new home or in an extension or in their current home, sorry, but who are we to say that you can't, given there's restrictions in place on the type and the quality of that heater? I think the best thing sometimes council and other government departments can do is just get out of the way and let people live their lives.
I'm going to move as per the book.
Okay, you going to second it, Councillor?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Sheldon. Right, you've spoken. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Haggerty?
Yep, look, as far as I understand, we're fulfilling a motion from August 2015, so the will of council is that we act on this. As I mentioned earlier, I have a motion up about air quality. There's the report that Mr Anderson referred to earlier. There were 4 recommendations in that report. One of them was that we place restrictions in urban areas on wood-fired heaters. They're a main contributor to small particle air pollution. If we care about clean air and the effects that polluted air has on people's health, increased rate of stroke, heart attacks, etc., then we need to do something about it. This is where we can act. There are a lot of times where, there are things beyond our control, i.e. the intermodal, we're at arm's length in regards to that. Here's a very on-the-ground thing that we can do to fix up air quality. Let's do it.
Okay, thank you. Do you wish to write a reply, Councillor?
Yeah, why not, Mayor? Obviously, not looking good, given there's 10 councillors in the chamber. But if we talk about the quality and air and everything else, does that mean now we're going to pull cars off the road as well? Obviously, they do pollute, but we do have cars on the road. Councillor Haggerty raised the intermodal. There was a top opportunity for council to get involved with the intermodal when it could have taken the proponent to court in relation to traffic, and which would have reduced, the air pollution if we were successful. But unfortunately, council chose not to take the proponent on. That was a real-life example of where we had an opportunity to make a big difference in this area when it came to the air pollution, and council chose not to take the proponent on in the courts. Who knows what would have happened, but we had...
Point of order, Mayor?
Yes, Councillor, what's your point of order?
I believe that council supported legal action in regards to the intermodal, or opposing the intermodal.
That is true. That is true. Continue your discussion.
Sorry, Mayor, with all respect, I will correct both of you on that. Council did, and I'm asking a question here, my understanding is when council had the opportunity to take the proponent, sorry, this thing's not working, to court in relation to the traffic issues, council chose not to proceed with the legal proceedings. Is that correct?
I was really trying to stay out of this one, Councillor. Council did make a decision that we would not undertake council legal action. We did, however, provide financial support for a community group at RAID to undertake financial action through the Environmental Defenders Office.
And that was for the small portion, not for the traffic, the air pollution and everything else. So just in relation to that, sorry, Mayor, but I had to...
I understand your passion, Councillor. Move on.
If we are talking about that, council has had opportunities to control the air pollution, and that was a classic example where council chose not to go legal. I'm not sure why, as a council, we can sit here, and yes, councillor, 2 years ago, council moved that, but since then, or 4 years ago, sorry, I'm getting on in life, there have been a lot of concerns and issues with the locals saying, listen, I want to put a wood heater in there, and it's not encouraged. People don't want us to do it. If people want to put a legal product into their house, that's a wood heater that meets the standards. Sorry, but get out of the way and let them do what they got to do.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I have some clarification here, please?
No, because...
well, the question is, are we dealing with the clean air for Liverpool NOM 2?
No.
We're not?
No.
No, but they're so similar, and it's been referred to...
We're on page 104.
I know, but it's been referred to by Councillor Haggerty, and I'm confused because...
Well, I'm sorry you're confused, Councillor. The answer is still no. We've had the right of reply, which closes debate and closes questions. So I am now going to put the motion as moved by Councillor Chitty and moved by yourself, seconded by yourself. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? Declare the motion carried and the foreshadowed motion fails. Next item is on page 112.
Madam Mayor, I move that way with a question.
Second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any discussion?
The question, Madam Mayor, was whether there are any matters that may have got caught up in the pipeline in the gap between exhibition number 1 and exhibition number 2. There doesn't appear to be from those weekly reports we receive from time to time, but I was just curious whether there was in fact anything caught up in the gap between.
My understanding is no. I'll look to Mr. Smith for confirmation. No, yeah. I don't think any DAs have.
No, the only one was the Madang Street appeal, but certainly no challenges to the validity of the consent. The reason we're putting it back to council is to avoid any doubt that this could occur in the future.
And so there's nothing in the interim where there's been a challenge to... Yeah, thank you.
Do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Shelton?
No, nothing further, thanks.
Any other speakers? I'm going to put it. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it unanimous. Next item's on page 138.
I'll move a 37 or 38? 30.
138. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
No, the
38,
recommendation's on page 138.
I move it, but I need to make a little change if that's okay.
Yeah. Well, what is your motion, councillor?
So one as the book,
Yep.
and then just in relation to 2 gets replaced. Sorry, George, I gave you 2, 3, 4, 5, but the 3 on your one replaces 2 now, which is just more clarification. Yep, so that's
So you're deleting 2, is that what you're saying?
yeah, so
Okay.
yeah, so get rid of 2 and put number 3 in its place. And that's the only change to the actual
And the rest is...
recommendation in the book, and if I get a second, I'll explain that
Okay.
change.
Happy to second.
Thank you, councillor Did. You wish to speak to your motion now.
Just
councillor.
quickly, in relation to that change, it pretty much says the same thing, but just tightens it up, and I thank the Director for the words in relation to that. One was saying, let's look at the public benefit and the needs and everything else. This is saying, bring it back when the planning proposal, if it does go through Gateway, pretty much at the same time, let's do them together, so we don't fall into the mistakes of the past where we've rezoned something without that being considered at the same time.
Any other speakers? I'm going to put it. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it unanimous.
No, record me as voting against. Thank you.
Voting against it?
Me too.
Okay.
I'm still 700 behind, Councillor.
Okay. Councillor Haggerty and Councillor Shelton wish to have it established. They voted against that motion. Okay, page 146 is the next motion.
Can I ask questions to
Certainly,
the CEO
councillor.
through you, Madam Mayor? Did you commission, through the CEO through you, Madam Mayor, did you commission an economic assessment in regard of the proposal planning?
Mr Moore, can you speak to that?
Certainly through the CEO. We didn't, and I'm happy to explain a few reasons why that's the case. Fundamentally, that's because...
Well, first of all, you said you didn't, isn't it? You said you did not.
We did not. No, correct. And there's a few reasons for it. The first is that because of what the proposed zoning is, the proposed zoning is in part a B6 corridor zone, and that's really the only part I think we're talking about when it comes to economic impact, as opposed to the RE2 zone. There's a couple of controls in place and objectives in place in that zone that intentionally limit the amount of retail and the role of any retail in that zone. So one of the objectives specifically says that any retail needs to be kept to a size that it doesn't impact on the centres, use that term, the centres, so referring to other places in the local government area where there is to be a higher concentration of retail. So that's the objective, and then there are specific controls that limit, as was pointed out by the speakers tonight, that limit the amount of retail you can have within a development in that zone. A supermarket, for example, or a combination of retail can only be up to a maximum of 1,500 square metres. So on our assessment, that's a size that wouldn't cause economic impact on other retail centres. That was also the assessment of the Department of Planning by not requiring an economic impact assessment with their gateway determination. And of course, with a combination of those that objective and that control, economic impacts can be assessed at the development application stage. So our view was an economic impact assessment isn't required at this rezoning point. We can evaluate the economic impacts at a development assessment time when those objectives and those controls need to be considered.
But the question, how do we know if there is an impact if we don't have an assessment, a proper assessment, especially as commercial involved in this planning proposal?
Through the CEO, I guess what I'm saying is we're comfortable that the impact wouldn't be so great that it couldn't, because of those controls that are built into the zoning, the impact wouldn't be so great that it couldn't be mitigated and managed and properly understood at the development application stage rather than at the rezoning stage.
So you're saying
But
the
is-
framework's there to control any sort of development that may or may not happen?
So, but isn't it part of the requirement to have an economic assessment?
What the requirement is when you're rezoning land, the requirements and the further studies you need to do when you're rezoning land are always specified in the gateway determination. So there are a range of things which are reported on there that we had to do. They're in the gateway determination. There wasn't a requirement to do an economic impact assessment. So the answer is no.
Okay.
Well, Madam Mayor, can I move that the fair item Agro 070 will receive an assessment, an economic assessment? Having said that, does not mean we're going to support any proposal in the future. There is no commitment to do that. Thank you.
I
Thank
could
you.
second that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shelton.
I'll throw a spanner in the works and foreshadow a motion, Mayor.
I'll ask you what the nature of it is,
It's in
Councillor.
relation to that. Currently, we're looking at Part RE2, Part B6, that we pretty much tear this one up and we make it all RE2.
Translated means?
Means that we don't proceed with the B6 zoning, we proceed with a total RE2 zoning, which allows us to do a lot of things on there as per the RE2 restrictions in the LEP. It allows the sports club to do what they need to do. And it remains as community land instead of the possibility of, in 20 months with a new council, someone selling it off and putting something that we don't like.
Okay. Thank you.
How that's worded, I have no idea.
Yeah, well, I think you need to think about that, Councillor, but you've got some time. Okay, any discussion regarding the motion? There's deferral until an economic assessment is undertaken on this particular issue. Moved by Councillor Hadid and seconded by Councillor Sheldon. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Hadid? Deferral until that's... Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Haggerty, you had your light on. Councillor Hull.
Question, Madam Mayor. How long would this economic assessment take?
Mr Moore, 4 months. We'd need to write the brief, send it out to quote, assess, and 3 months?
3 months, Councillor.
Question, if I may.
Yes, Councillor Rhodes.
Through the chair, with it all being RE2, does that enable us still to be able to do service stations and those types of facilities?
No, Councillor. It requires zoning to B6 to allow for something like a service station.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
if I may, I
Councillor.
just have a question following
Yes.
on from Councillor Rhodes' question. I just need clarity on RE2. What is permissible in RE2? Can I have some examples, please?
If it makes it easier, I'm happy to read it straight out of the...
Yes, go
Yeah.
ahead, Councillor.
Animal boarding or training establishments, boat sheds, building identification signs, camping grounds, car parks, caravan parks, childcare, centre-based childcare facilities, charting and tourism, community facilities, entertainment facilities, moorings, places of public worship, plant nurseries, recreation area. That's RE2, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. Recreational facilities outdoors, registered clubs, respite day care centres. That's not a bad idea. Stock and sale yards, vets, water, recreation structures. So still a big amount of things we can do.
Okay, how about, with B6, if Councillor Hachidi can enlighten us
Councillor
further?
Hachidi, you happy to join our planning team for the evening?
I've wanted to join your planning team for a very long time.
Conflict of interest.
I just need some
Councillor?
clarity on that.
Mr Moore, could you please read out the permissible uses on B6 land?
Certainly. Maybe I'll paraphrase firstly, because it's quite a long list. It's the kinds of uses like service stations, hardware stores, bulky goods retail, so, large format furniture stores and that sort of thing, garden centres, fast food centres or restaurants, And then a lot of the uses that were just mentioned, educational establishment, environmental facilities, hotels, some residential if it complies with certain standards, hotels I mentioned, serviced apartments, vehicle repair stations, transport depots and a heap of others. But hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavour of the sorts of things. I can give you my list if you'd like to have a look through it.
Any other discussion?
I'd like to second Councillor Chitty's motion.
It hasn't got any words yet. I think I'd wait, Councillor, until there's some substance to the motion. Would be worth it just...
Move the motion.
Okay, Councillor Didd and Councillor Shelton, do you wish to speak for your motions? No?
Straightforward.
Okay, I'll put the foreshadowed motion can come in behind and there's a bit of time to write it. But I think we understand the sentiment.
Mr Smith, can you think of how we compose that? Because we're not actually supporting the making of Amendment 54 as it is. What we're doing is...
Are you preempting?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, really? Thank you for chairing, Councillor.
I'm just trying to think how to...
All right, well, there's some mind thinking going on here. I'm going to put
Can
the
I
motion...
make a suggestion?
Yes, Councillor.
For Councillor Hitchidis, is there an issue if we put it off for a month to give you guys a month to come back with something? Like, is it time sensitive?
I think we can work through it. We just need to just make sure that it's
words
lawful.
are right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have 2 lawyers and a number of planners in the room. I'm sure they can figure it out.
All right, councillors, I'm going to move the first motion as moved by Councillor Didd and seconded by Councillor Sheldon. And it says the matter be deferred until Council receives an economic assessment on the matter. Those in favour? Those against? It fails. Now, the foreshadowed motion, Councillor Chitty, what is your foreshadowed motion?
The sentiments of the foreshadowed, and I'll wait for the legal brains to put it together if I may.
Well, we'll have a 5-minute break
Thanks.
so they can do that. I'm reconvening the meeting, councillors.
We don't believe we know. Let the department determine.
Unless you really
want to do it. Well, let's
reconvening.
They'll tell us if they're not happy with the public exhibitions.
Going. Mr. Story, we've reconvened the meeting. Thank you, Councillor. There's a motion in the name of Councillor Hitchidis and seconded by Councillor Rhodes. It's before you. It's a short motion.
We're missing someone there and it's planning, so I think we should. Sorry, you are Chair.
Thank you, I know that. Who are you missing? David?
I'll ask a question while we're waiting. How's that? Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
If it goes to the department can knock it back and knock it back on a number of grounds, but one of those grounds could be you need to put it out for public exhibition.
That's correct. We could be advised that they wish us to exhibit again.
Yeah, the department is the ruler of all things.
Yeah,
okay.
They can still do it. Now we've lost 2 of them.
We've lost 2 of them now, yeah. Okay, he's back in the room. Any further discussion over this matter, Councillor?
Yes, if I may, Madam Mayor, I think that this particular motion is pleasing everybody. I think everybody was in support of the of Sporties Club. So the motion is allowing Sporties some certainty and it also alleviates much of the question mark about what could possibly go into a B6 area if that was to be a part of this particular zoning change. With that taken out, I think that, as we say, we didn't have anything in there to necessitate it at this particular stage. And I think that it gives the best result possible for this to proceed without any further delay or with the least amount of delay.
Okay, that's the speaker for. Any speakers against? I'm going to put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried with 1 person against. That's Councillor Shelton.
Yeah, if you can record.
Thank you. Next item.
I'll move a motion, Mayor, if we're on row 08.
157.
Yep. Mayor, I'll move a motion and then I'll allow anybody to make any declarations of interest and leave the room should they choose to do so.
Fair enough.
But I'll just pre-warn councillors that there may be a declaration that may be made.
Okay.
And
What is your motion, councillor?
slowly, it's going to get there.
Not sure where I'll slip this in. It's a curious title, councillor. Curiouser and curiouser.
To ensure that, if I make their life a little bit easy.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that, and we have asked for councillors to prepare their motions in
I'll read
advance.
the motion and then, Mayor, I'll reiterate if anyone needs to make a declaration that we pause for a minute to allow them to do so.
Yep.
Excuse me. That Council 1 note that Infrastructure Australia has listed Sydney Metro City and South West as a high priority project. 2, note that the Sydney Metro City and South West will provide in part 48 extra services in peak on the airport and South Line. B, 72 extra services for each of the Western, Blue Mountains, Inner West and Leppington lines. 3, note that a survey on Liverpool Listens was undertaking asking, do you support a Metro rail extension from Bankstown to Liverpool, which attracted 182 respondents, of which 161 responded yes and 21 no. 4, note the media release issued by Council on the 23rd of October 2017, which in part states, Liverpool is missing out again, said Liverpool CEO Kirsten Fishburn. People can't be made to wait decades for infrastructure they need now. These are critical rail links which will make an enormous difference to the quality of people's lives, connecting people's job. And this is no reflection on anyone here, it's just reading straight from the media release.
Would you like me to read it out of my own voice, Councillor?
No, that's fine. Already Liverpool communities are struggling with one of the slowest lines in Sydney. We desperately need express services to get people to work in reasonable time. Many residents are losing up to 3 hours a day commuting. Mayor Waller and the councillors want the best for the city's residents, which is why we work so hard on this issue. We have run surveys, a petition, made expert submissions, met with countless bureaucrats and politicians. We will not standing up for the people of Liverpool, and I would encourage members of the community to let the New South Wales Government know what they think. 5, note the SMH report on the 14th of October 2015 headed Folly proposes Bankstown Metro extension to Liverpool Badgerys Creek, which in part states the state opposition is calling on the government to consider extending the Bankstown line, planned to be converted to a metro rail link in straight line to Liverpool and then perhaps beyond to Badgerys Creek. 6, note that the extensive lobbying by council note that after extensive lobbying by council, the state government included the metro from Bankstown to Liverpool in their plans. Sorry, that was 6. Sorry, there's 2 6s there. My bad. The other 6, note that the state Labor leader vowed mid-February 2019 to spend $8 billion to fast-track a new metro train line between Parramatta and Central City, with some of the funds coming from cancelling the Sydney Metro City and South West. 7, which is really 8, note that Liverpool is the gateway to the South West, the third CBD, and is sick of having much needed funds and links diverted to improve Parramatta. 8, direct the CEO to immediately lobby the state opposition leader in all ways possible, requesting that this transport project is not council should his party be elected to govern. 9, direct the CEO to immediately commence a community awareness campaign using all means possible, not limited to print and social, voicing our outrage on the promise by the state opposition leader to cancel the Sydney Metro City and South West should his party be elected to govern, highlighting the benefits this project will bring to our residents. 10, direct the CEO to use funds from the unrestricted reserves to ensure our message is heard loud and clear. And at that, Mayor, I will pause to allow anyone to make a declaration should they choose.
Happy to second it.
And I would like to declare a conflict of interest, significant, non-pecuniary, therefore I'll be leaving the room.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just ask a question in relation to declarations of interest? Can you correct me if I'm right or wrong in relation to declarations of interest, that if a person seeks to gain or lose any financial benefit, that it's classed as pecuniary?
It is up to the individual to interpret that particular definition. You cannot, I suppose, interpret it on another person's whatever. I hear what you're saying, but it's a personal issue and it's up to the individual to make that determination.
So, for instance, if a metro was going to go near where you lived or property you owned, you would make a, potentially, you could lose or gain significant amounts of money.
But again, it's up to you personally to make a decision whether you have a pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest. It's your decision, it's nobody else's.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Councillor Rhodes.
The metro line, is it still going to be going along the Hoxton Park or out to 2168? Because I'm confused about that, because we've got the rapid transit line that goes along the Hoxton Park, and I feel that we're putting all of our transportation to the one area. So,
Councillor, can I speak to at the moment, as Councillor Huchidi has captured in his motion, Transport Futures 2056 identifies an extension of the planned metro to Bankstown into Liverpool, and that's where it ends. Council has been advocating for, over a number of council terms now, a further extension of that metro. Considering the proposal is within a 40-year horizon, Council, as you all know, believes it's prudent to look at other transport options in the meantime. But as of today, the only committed outcome for the metro extension is from Bankstown to Liverpool within a 40-year horizon, no further than that.
well, would it be possible to extend that out to the new airport? And not stipulate, do we have to stipulate the pathway that is taken? Can we say to look at the pathways available? And
Councillor, you can determine to lobby for that. At this point in time, it is not on any transport plans, but it is more than possible for council to lobby towards that. I have acted on previous council resolutions that indicate extending the metro through the 2168 area out towards the airport. Should councillors wish me to advocate for a different option or a number of alternative options, of course you can determine that. But just to be clear, there are two stated positions at the moment. One is the one that has been adopted by the current New South Wales Government in Transport Futures 2056. The other is the stated election position of the New South Wales Labor Party, which is to cancel the line from Bankstown altogether. They've remained silent on the matter of Liverpool, but if you don't have the line to Bankstown, you're certainly not going to get it to Liverpool.
would it be possible to add to the motion that we amend the future transport strategy to include Bankstown to Liverpool Rail and lobby for the route to be continued through to the airport?
The CEO would like to make a comment.
The Transport Futures 2056 is adopted New South Wales state government policy. We can certainly advocate for changes to that, but we don't have the authority to actually change it ourselves.
So we're happy to accept lobbying for that and the changes, yes.
Yes. So could we possibly include in the motion that council lobbies for the Bankstown metro line to go to Liverpool and further through to Leppington and the new airport, so that we're taking it in a different direction from our rapid transit corridor, which I believe is council's best opportunity of getting the fastest and the most direct route. 20 minutes. Nobody's going to be able to beat that, I don't think.
Of course, I can lobby for anything that council resolves me to do. Just a few points there. I think what you're looking for effectively is a metro connection to the airport that complements council's rapid transit aspiration. I think that's probably the way to say it. The issue with putting it down to Leppington is on a hard rail connection. Metro is a different, and in transport planning, what you don't want to do is have people change from two modes. So I understand what you're trying to do, Councillor, absolutely, but I was just thinking around the words for it. Councillor Huchidi, do you lend me a hand here?
Scary. What we want to see, and the whole of this is to ensure firstly that the first stage is done, which is Bankstown to Liverpool, and this is the call to not scrap that project, and more importantly not to divert the funds to Parramatta. But once we get to Liverpool, yes, I totally agree with the CEO on, do we then run a metro from Liverpool through Leppington to the airport, no, because there is the hard rail, and yes. But once it gets to Liverpool, which is what we need to get, and that's at risk at the moment, is it then the rapid transport corridor with the tramless trains, driverless bus, whatever it is, that gets us from Liverpool to the actual airport? That's probably the wording that we're looking for here. I think soon, or in the future, before any airport's open, there's going to be enough pressure on whoever's in Canberra or in Macquarie Street to ensure the Liverpool Spur goes through to the airport before the airport opens. There's enough pressure out there that both will cave in if they haven't already. I'm not sure who has and who hasn't on that. But for us, it's important that the metro gets to Liverpool, which is at jeopardy at the moment. And then from Liverpool, is it a metro? It is a rapid transport link, but is it metro? Is it trackless trams? Is it the driverless buses? That's where we should now be focusing on.
Just a question then, but if we word it in such a manner as that, are we not making people stop at Liverpool and get out and take another mode of transport to get to the airport?
That's the...
Councillor, can I answer that question? The reality is there's a lot of transport modes being considered at the moment, and I think what you're suggesting, even though it's in good faith and looks good on paper, may not actually work, because I think you'll find that the metro line, if it does come to Liverpool, will be going in other places. The airport may not be its final destination. My suggestion would be to make your amendment a point 12 if the mover is happy with that, and just take out and further through to Leppington and the new airport, because there is hard rail coming and there is agreement from all the parties to do that, and those particular pieces of transport, including hopefully a spur, which would also be a hard line, will be coming from Leppington as well. So we don't want to mix it to the point where it doesn't get delivered, because our messages are a bit out there and they don't understand. We want to ensure whatever we get works, and it works for the betterment of the community, and also people listen and can see what we're saying will work. So with your indulgence, I would actually make if the mover is happy, lobby for the Bankstown Metro line to go to Liverpool, and I would actually take out the new airport, because there's the hard line going in at the moment. Eventually, they will have to review all their transport modes, because they've also got road as well, and make that a point 12 if the mover is happy with that.
I think it's already captured in the...
Yeah, I think so too, but if Councillor Rhodes wants it as an additional item. Is the mover happy with that?
Yeah, it works, yeah.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? I'm going to put it, those in favour...
Can we...
Those in favour, those against, declare it carried.
Can we have a division?
Yep.
Councillor Haggerty was in the room, please.
Well, you can't make him be there. You're right. Okay, there's a division. Those in favour, please stand. Those against? I suppose I've got to stand, don't I? Oh, God. Okay. Motion got moved. Thank you.
Mayor, can the minutes reflect that Councillor Haggerty was in the room when the vote was taken and ran out?
No, I'm
Why
not
not,
going to
Mayor?
have the minutes. He's in the loo. That is not reasonable, Councillor. Nice try. Okay, next item's on page 189.
Can I just correct the
Wait
minutes?
a moment.
there?
I think we're missing Councillor Caliander. Can someone get her, please?
Can I just correct the minutes there?
Yep.
A division was called
Yep.
against Councillor Hull and Councillor Rhodes and Councillor Carniv. I didn't vote against it. Do you want to do that again?
If you wish, Councillor. Those in favour, please stand. Yeah, well, they're going like flies. Those against, I'm up. Ooh, I'm up. You are. So there you go. All right. You are for. Next item's on page 189.
I'm confused.
I think we do it again, Mayor.
No, Councillor, please continue with the professionalism of this.
Can I just remind councillors that this is being live broadcast?
Yes. Okay. On page 189, I did
Move that way.
Thank you,
did
Madam Mayor.
remind councillors of the professionalism of the meetings. Now, Councillor Chitty's moving, seconded.
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Just one question about that. 189, this is the...
Biennial progress report, July to December.
Yes, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. I'll put it. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Unanimous. Okay, next item is on page 191.
Move that way. Thank you, Madam
Thank you,
Mayor.
Councillor Shelton. Thank you, Councillor Carney.
Just a question.
Yes.
In regards to the Charming Asia Lunar Carnival, when is that proposed to take place? Do we have information on that?
We'll have to take that on notice. I don't have the date on hand unless you got it, Ms. Sangiuliano.
And I have a question or clarification. The Junior Top Blokes Mentoring, that's going to give a benefit to 15 people and their families. So it's not a benefit to a large Liverpool community. And then you look at the Time for Kids project, and that's going to have an impact on 500 Liverpool residents. Now, they're just receiving 3,900, and yet the Top Blokes, I haven't got it down here how much they're getting, but it seems a little bit strange to me that, that it doesn't equate. If you've got, and I'm sure they're very, very good and perfectly good programs that they're running, but the number of people that are being affected by the Top Junior Blokes mentoring seems to be considerably smaller than that of the Time for Kids project. And yet there's a great difference between the amount of money.
I'll ask stop. I hear you, CEO.
Two things to stress there. Firstly, part of the reason for the Police Citizens Youth Club recommendation being lower is that $6,100 of the money they requested was to cover operational expenses which were excluded from our policy. Secondly, and I think this is the more material answer, there's no one equivalency for programs. Some programs are much more expensive to run because they're more complex or they're more time consuming or they require different materials. Other programs can be much cheaper to run. So while it would be easy and make our life easier if you could put a metric on it that said, say, $10 for every participant, that simply doesn't reflect the reality of running different programs in the community. For instance, a program that required multiple translators might be significantly more expensive to run than a program that was a fun day in a park, even though the fun day in the park may have 2,000 participants and a program with translators may have 20. So really that's the point of councillors need to weigh all these things up when they make the decision, but there simply isn't a metric that would allow you to put a numerical figure against number of attendees or participants.
I think the point is that councillors don't have that information really about how much effort is going into the Junior Top Blokes mentoring program as opposed to the Time for Kids project.
Maybe, Councillor, if the staff member involved would like to explain the process to the councillors, because I'm very aware it's been explained before, but we can try again.
Yes, in relation to each of the grant applications, there is an assessment process that it looks at the grant application against council's grants and sponsorship criteria. Staff undertake a fairly rigorous evaluation of whether the programs meet the outcomes that we seek in the community. So that's really what councillors are looking for, the information. Does you have a grants and sponsorship policy? Does this align with the grants and sponsorship policy? Do staff have confidence that they're able to deliver it? Is the community of benefit being identified? And you'll note in each of your, in the report, that you get the assessment against that and where it meets all of the criteria there.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, CEO. Sorry, I just made you a councillor. I'm sure you'd enjoy that. Okay, any other questions? I'm going to put it. Those in favour? Those against? The carried. Next item's on page 200.
Move that way. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconded? Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Carney. Any discussion? I'll put it. Those in favour? Those against? The carried. Unanimous. Next item's on page 203.
Move that way. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shelton.
I just have a couple of questions.
Hold on. Seconded. Councillor Haggerty, you seconding? No. Councillor Carney. Okay. Right.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, just to clarify, which item are we on?
We're on page 203. Delegation register.
Are we ready for my question, Madam Mayor?
Yes, go for it, Councillor.
Okay, on page 208, Financial Matters, 3.31, authorising the expenditure of funds or the payment of goods and services by the council for an amount of 5 million or more. Is the 5 million a mistake? Why are we talking about 5 million when on page 205, second last paragraph on the page, in order to allow an extension from the current 1 million to a value of 2 million? Am I misreading it?
Essentially they're two different things. Mr White, I'll ask you to explain.
So through the CEO, the delegation is set out in a way that delegations are set out in a cascading fashion, Councillor. So what you're reading here is the delegation that council can make, the only legal delegation that the elected council can make, which is to the CEO, and that is in effect, that one on 208 is an unlimited financial delegation. Those delegations then roll down to staff progressively. Directors have a delegation of up to $500,000, managers have a delegation of up to $50,000, and so on and so forth. That is to approve expenditure that is subject to proper tender processes or purchasing processes and that has been otherwise approved by the council if it is a tender, for example. So that 5 million or more is a function of the system we use, which is a cascading system. Otherwise, the CEO is dead right. That $1 million figure to $2 million figure relates to the approval of tenders under Section 377, which right now the council must approve anything over 1 million. The recommendation is that you increase that to 2 million in order to speed up the delivery of capital works for those projects under $2 million.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll put it, those in favour, those against, declare it carried.
Can I be recorded as voting against, and you're really quick on that, Mayor? That's why I'll...
Yep, that's fine, you've got voted against. Next item's on page 210.
Move that way, thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'm happy to second it. I just have another little question.
Yes, Councillor Rhodes.
On page 236, the budget review statements, 8th item from the top, veterinary services, 130,000 for 2 years.
Yep.
The question mark that I've got is, how is that worked out? I mean, would it be on the number of sick animals that are received or the number of, I find it, does it have in it...
projected value.
Yeah. I just wondered how that figure was arrived at.
It's an estimate based on our past experiences, Councillor, and our estimate around the number of animals that are likely to come through our system. We can estimate that pretty well. As the population increases, so does the number of animals, but it remains fairly static. If you've had 80 with a population of 200,000, then you might end up, if you went to 300,000, you'd end up with 120.
So we are to expect a percentage variation on that figure from time to time. It's not set.
This is our best guess for this point in time. But yes, if we suddenly got an increase, for instance, of lost sheep in the council area, of which we have one in the shelter at the moment, if anyone's looking for their sheep, then yes, there would be an increase in our veterinary fees as a consequence of that. But we're fairly experienced in this area, and I think we come pretty close to getting it right each year.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'll put it, those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item on page 239.
Move that way, thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Sheldon, and thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Any discussion? I'll put it, those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item's on page 250.
I have a question.
Yes, what is your question?
Through the Mayor, can the CEO show me where in the policy amendments it refers to restrictions of access having been lifted for councillors? I can't find it. And yet the motion was clearly that council endorse the councillor access to information and interaction with staff policy with the restrictions lifted on obtaining legal advice, and yet I can't find that in the amendments.
The policy, this particular policy, Mr Knight, I'm looking at you to check if I'm correct for this, doesn't actually speak to councillors' access to legal advice. That is dealt with in the councillor access to information in interaction with staff policy. So this policy is silent on the matter of councillors being able to access legal advice. Mr White, I'm correct there? Mr Knight, sorry.
Yes.
Well, therefore, I'd like to move a motion.
Council, I think it's surplus, to be frank. It's already in our documents, so putting it in this one, which is a separate document overarching other activities, while I understand what you're going to move, and that is what was moved at a previous council meeting, it's really surplus to the document, but if you choose to continue, you can.
As long as I have council's guarantee that councillors will have access to all information and interaction with staff policy.
It's a resolution of council.
So it is
Council, I'm bound by it. If I failed to meet that, I would be in breach of my code of
So the fact that it's been
requirements.
taken out of this policy means nothing.
It's never been in this policy,
No.
Councillor. The
reference to it. It was there.
It was taken out. Okay, so with that clarification, is there any other questions? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, they're carried.
You need a seconder.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Councillor Sheldon. I'm a bit enthusiastic. Who would like to second it? I admitted I got it wrong. Thank you. Seconder? No one's going to second? Oh, thank you, Councillor.
Oh, second.
No, Councillor Hall put his hand up. Gentleman that he is. Okay, so I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, carried. Next item is on page 271.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion? I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Turn the page. Okay, on page 274.
Move that way, Mayor.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Thank you, Councillor Hachidi and Councillor Carnip. Yes, Councillor Rhodes.
The question is, I'm a little bit confused as to the actual lids that are going on the bins. They're powder coated. So can you explain whether, if people come along with their cigarette butts and they put them out on that powder coated tops on the new bins, will it damage the tops of the bins?
Mr Patterson, could you please speak to that question?
Through you, CEO. The difference is the bin lids won't be coloured, so they'll be a natural finish. So the butt stains won't show.
They won't burn. That's the problem.
Yeah, it won't burn.
Excellent.
Any other questions?
But with this, I understand it that we're putting butt bins with it, so hopefully they won't burn anyway. And just to quickly close that, congratulate smokers on actually using the bins to throw their butts out. That's why we need to replace them.
Mm-hmm. And Madam Mayor, I would like to make another amendment to it if I can.
What is your motion, Councillor?
There is a company that I am aware of, a local company here in the Liverpool LGA, who actually recycles cigarette butts into making building products. And I'd like to add a point to this motion, that council contact local companies, and I'm willing to give them the name of this company, who's already a supplier to council, who recycles cigarette butts into building products and prepare a report back to council.
Point of order, Mayor.
Yes, Councillor.
While I think this is a great initiative, are we getting into legal trouble here by, picking winners and such?
Just, can you hold that thought? I am going to take some advice.
We could certainly speak to a company, Councillor, but we would have to follow if we went to go and use that company, we'd have to follow our normal procurement and put it out to quote or tender, depending on the cost of it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It wasn't to say that you use that company. I was simply advising council that I know of a company, and I presume there will be others out there, and we would be recycling the cigarette butts. If we've got people getting them into the bins, what a simple process to have that company come down and take ownership of the cigarette butts and have them recycled.
Councillor,
can I?
For the sake of, I suppose, saving grace, inverted commas, how about we take your sentiment on board? I think the staff have heard it. I don't think they'll disagree with it, and they will happily talk to that company. And if there is anything that comes out of that, then a process will have to be entered into, rather than try to fix it on the run. I'm very concerned.
Absolutely, and it just stated a report back to council by May.
So we're going back to the original motion.
Sorry, Mayor, I've been advised that I need to reword that motion because the recommendation is to receive a note.
Yep.
Needs to B, that authorised the spending to replace the bins, spend the money.
The council receives and notes the cost outlined in this report and approves the expenditure.
Thank you.
Okay. We've got a mover
Madam
and a
Mayor,
seconder.
yeah, I'm happy to second that. I just want to clarify, with that wording, approve expenditure, that means that the bins will actually be replaced with the ones here in the example. Okay, I'm happy to.
Yeah, it's seconded already by Councillor Didd and he agreed to the...
Does that have the amendment that I'm putting in?
No, we're taking yours out for the sake of legalities, because I don't want to be in the situation...
All right, how about we go with council investigate the use of butts to
recycle cigarette
butts to build butt houses or building products.
How about we just simply say this, that council investigate the opportunity to recycle the cigarette butts into building products?
Which is what I said earlier.
Can we put that into the motion?
Do that without having to put it in a motion, but if you are so... all
Thank
right,
you.
so there's no buts to this butt. Okie dokie. I'm going to put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. I didn't think bins would be so binny. All right, the next is committee reports.
Mayor, can I, as part of 01,
Yep.
sorry, George, the one that says, I don't know where I'll slip this one in. Oh, you all saw it. It's the title of the... Don't worry, it's nothing controversial. Can we add that? And if it's not in the right place, I'm happy to put it somewhere else. All it is, during the if I get a seconder, I'll then speak, or do you want me to speak now?
Well, to explain what you want to do first.
As part of the Intermodal Committee, there's some recommendations coming to Council. Unfortunately, because of time in Council meetings, the minutes aren't available till the next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We thought this was important to come to Council now, given that we're a month away from the election, that we hit both sides in relation to this. The Intermodal has obviously been approved and is coming. The committee and council endorsed the request for the heavy vehicle safety stations. They're those big ones that you see on the freeways.
Yeah.
Pretty much the RMS said, we do those on big freeways. We don't just target specific projects. So what we're trying to get now in relation to that is one of those safety stations that we see on Narellan Road, on Northern Road, and a few other roads.
Mm-hmm.
And given that the Intermodal's coming, it's a hot topic, and we're 4 weeks away from the election for both sides of both parties, maybe we immediately lobby to get at least that as part of the road upgrade or transfer to the RMS or whatever the case is going to be. And it was probably just important to raise it now and work on it while we have that opportunity.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to second that.
Being seconded everywhere. Okay, Councillor Didd, thank you. Moved by Councillor Chitty and seconded. Any discussion?
Hold on. Don't we need to attach that to the rest of the motion?
Yeah, it's an additional spot.
Can we make sure it's like that?
You okay, Councillor? Right, okay. I'm going to put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Next item is Civic Advisory Committee.
Yep, I would like to make some amendments to the motion there, or I'd like to put a motion forward.
Yep.
As per the book, with the following changes. Point 2, can we change endorse to note? And point 3, this is a bit of a question, I guess. We review all the charters in September, is that right?
Yeah. This one, they can.
We usually review them once a term, or if something materially changes, but we certainly can. There's nothing to prevent councillors reviewing a charter at any time they wish to. All council staff bring it to you on occasion too. The membership comes to you every September.
Okay. But I guess my issue with this committee is that the membership is sort of potentially forever and ever, isn't it, for some of the members of this committee?
No, we do go out from some of the members of the committee. Yes, the charter speaks to that. We also do have community representative members from, I believe, Defence and the service clubs. Mr. Georgiakis, am I correct? The other matter that can potentially change at September when councillors review the committee membership is the number of councillors or which councillor can act as the chair of particular committees as well. So that comes up in each September as well, and at that point we would amend a charter if we were required to amend a charter, but it's a change that's been adopted by council.
All right. I guess my concern with look, I think it's great that we keep former mayors and councillors involved in civic matters. One day when I'm an old former councillor, I'd still like to be involved in the goings-on in Liverpool. My concern is that at some point we may have 40, 50, 60 potential members of this committee, and in reviewing the charter, there was, I guess, a bit there, like, as councillors, if we miss 3 meetings and don't give apologies, we get the boot. Where we don't have that same sort of thing here, that the wording here seems a bit nebulous in terms of retaining membership.
So why don't I suggest then, councillor, that you note the minutes, that there'd be a review of the charter and membership reviewed in September.
We can do that.
Yep. Is that okay?
Yep.
Happy with that?
Yep.
Can I ask a question? If we adopt the amended Civic Advisory Charter attached to the report, there's only a few minor changes from what I see, so there's nothing too significant. Does that then mean, and I've got to word this, sorry CEO, because this is going to go to you and I've got to be very careful how I ask you this question. Does that then mean anything that's happened in the past with any of those members, automatically now they're back on? Because it's a new charter that we're now adopting?
Well, the new charter will dictate the membership.
I understand what Councillor Hitchett asking me, and I'm being very cautious about answering it because it essentially speaks to a personnel matter. I would normally think that you'd set and refresh at the point in time where you voted on the new representatives. So you've got 3 different tiers of representative on this particular committee. You have the mayor and or her or his delegate, you have ex-mayors and councillors, and then you have community representatives. The first 2 tiers are immovable as the charter currently stands, but the community representatives are determined in September. So September, I would believe, and I know exactly what you're asking me, September would be the trigger point, I would think, where you would consider that as a new committee. Does that answer your question?
It does to a certain degree, but I was advised if we play with the policy or change the policy at any time, that's when the trigger takes effect.
Well, it would have been helpful for my ombudsman to advise me that fact too. But
there was a lot of things that we spoke about.
Yes,
and I'm sure if I remember correctly, but I'm not sure. I'm actually going to go against Councillor Haggerty on this one and adopt the amended one, and then if there's changes, so I'll foreshadow something. So 1 receives the notes.
I'm curious about this. So
2, I'm happy with note the recommendations in the minutes. There's no issue with Councillor Haggerty's. But the difference being number 3, that we do adopt this charter.
So that is adopt the charter as put?
Yeah, but the only thing that changes from the recommendation is number 2, the word endorse becomes note.
Okay.
So I guess I now have a question. There's a bit there around former councillors and mayors. If they don't have regular attendance, my understanding is the way the charter's written, if they don't have regular attendance, they can no longer attend this committee. However, I know what you're talking about, but it also applies to my thing, that if they don't attend for 6 meetings and they can't attend, as soon as we adopt a new charter, it triggers and all the councillors and mayors can come back on again.
That's why you need to review the charter.
Yeah.
Can I say, just for councillors' information, this process, and this is, and I'll be honest from the chair, this is the first time I've seen this document. So the consultation process has not been very good.
I'll speak for mine. It's a recommendation from the committee. I note number 2, Councillor Haggerty, thank you for explaining, and I don't have any issue with that. Generally, if a committee asks for something that doesn't cost council any money and it's a few words changing, which all I see in here is just a few words changing. You know, let's do it in September. If a bigger review needs to be done, well, then we'll do the bigger review in September.
Thank you. Councillor Haggerty, do you have a seconder to your motion?
I will second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Caliendo.
I'll second Hachitis.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. All right, I'm going to put the motion as moved by Councillor Haggerty. Those in favour? You nearly got it. Those against? Failed. A motion is put by Councillor Chitty. Those in favour? Those against? I declare it carried.
You might record me as voting against, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Shelton. Next item is on page 321. I am really angry about that. I'm so angry. Okay, sorry guys. Councillor Caliendo?
I'd just like to move that we receive and note the responses provided by council staff.
Thank you. We've got a seconder. Oh, it's a question without notice, sorry. Question with notice, I apologise. So you're okay with that? Next one is Councillor Haggerty.
I know there's questions, the answers will come back.
Okie dokie.
I just want to make it entirely clear that I've tried to make it as explicit as possible, but I'll use a visual demonstration. So we've got a small street, we've got one car. How wide, what is the skinniest it can be to get a truck through? And then the other one is the two cars, so two cars that are in line with each other. How skinny does it have to be to let I just want to make that entirely clear what I'm asking here. What is the clearing for a truck? Thank you.
I always wonder how the trucks get through at Middleton Grange.
For clarification, is that the minimum size of road width? Councillor Haggerty? Through the chair, question, is that you're asking for the minimum? We don't have it in our DCP, so it's a very good point, and it should be in there.
Well, the question's going to be answered. Okie dokie. Next is presentations. Do councillors have any presentations? Now, I'm conscious we have personal matters to go to closed council, which that's what I was going to suggest, so that's good. Clean Air for Liverpool, which is NOM02, which is on page 325.
I would like to move the motion.
Well, I have some amendments, if they will be accepted, because I think we can do a hell of a lot more here to get some action.
I'm always happy for your constructive contributions, Councillor Rhodes, please.
Well,
what are your suggestions, Councillor?
What I would like to know would, first of all, a question, is it possible to put in our DCP to make it obligatory to install equipment and procedure to capture air quality data on an hourly basis that is to be available to council upon request for all new manufacturing facilities that risk emitting pollutants into the air? Is that possible?
I think that the same issue with the DCP remains, that you can't obligate through the DCP. Are there any other options through the planning regime, Mr Moore?
What you've said is correct. I mean, by the same token, there's nothing stopping us putting something in there that might encourage that outcome with the DCP. We just can't mandate it. But there is a whole heap of stuff the state government do in respect of this through the Protection of the Environment Act and perhaps other legislation which Ms O'Toole might like to comment on. But within the Environmental Planning Assessment Act and our LEP, no, I don't believe there's anything additional that we could do.
Okay. If I may, I'll just read out the motion that I would like to have adopted into whatever you're doing. The first one is, yes, make it obligatory for all encourage, or whatever word you want to put in there, to install equipment and procedures to capture air quality data on an hourly basis that is to be available to council upon request for all new manufacturing facilities that risk emitting pollutants into the air. 2, all existing manufacturing facilities who risk air quality to have installed within 5 years equipment and procedure to capture the air quality data on an hourly basis, and for that to be available to council upon request. And number 3, to cover the other point that Tim mentioned, write to all MPs, state and federal, to support changes to the legislation that A, will ensure that all manufacturing facilities at risk of emitting air pollutants must install air monitoring equipment and procedure to capture data on an hourly basis that is to be available to the EPA and councils upon request, with statutory limits that are enforceable through stringent fines or possible closure of operation. And B, remove cars that do not comply with the current emission regulations, with the exception of vintage vehicles, vintage registered vehicles, in order to take high polluting vehicles off the road. And C, introduce tax initiatives to encourage the uptake of electric powered vehicles in order to phase out the reliance on fossil fuels.
Councillor
Now-
Haggerty, are you wanting to take those amendments onto your motion?
I would question the legality of some of them, whether we actually have the power to tax and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What I'm happy to do, and I'll explain, my motion is, I don't have all the answers. Let's go away and come back in 6 months with some possible answers. So if you, I'll take on board what you've got, but rather than do what you've asked, we investigate what you've asked. So I want council staff to go away, do a bit of investigation, and come back on the feasibility of improving air quality. I don't want to say, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this at this point. I'd rather do that in 6 months once the report comes back. But as part of that, I'm happy to add, investigate all the things that you've suggested.
I think that we've got an opportunity now. This is the best time for us to be taking a step forward to improve the air quality. We heard today about the air quality being so bad in Liverpool. I would like to have those figures documented from or authenticated from the newspaper report. I don't know if they're true, but if they are, that's certainly not the way we want Liverpool to be known, and we do need clean air. And I think that if we put these in as action items, it is at least lobbying to try and get some action taken. I can see no problem with that.
Councillor, I think you have your answer. I've given you some indulgence. Councillor Haggerty said he's happy to look at investigating the possibilities of installing pollution readings, etc., and all the things that you've raised, but he's not prepared to accept it in the fullness of what you're describing. So are you happy to have that? Well, you're not the actual mover. Are you happy to have that on your motion, Councillor?
As long as it's not, as long as it's investigated.
Prescriptive.
Yeah.
It's investigated.
Yeah, let's go away, let's get informed, let's get some expert report back.
What can't we do?
And then we can make an informed decision.
Okay. All right.
Madam Mayor, if I may, just make a suggestion. It's a really good notice of motion. I know that it's related to fine particle air pollution, but I was wondering if the councillor would be open to adding a number 3 and just investigating our tree policy, or do we have a tree fund? How much money is in that fund? If we did plant these trees and use this money, would that affect the air quality?
Can I suggest, Councillor, maybe the point 3 read that Council investigate the amount of trees required to ensure the environment is carbon neutral. Thank you. Yeah, because I know we did have a proposal 15 years ago to plant 1 million trees, but someone didn't do their homework and didn't figure out how much that was going to cost and how they were going to do it. So rather than go off half-treed, I think we should get some facts in alignment first.
Yep, I'm happy with that wording if Haggerty is. Also, Madam Mayor, I'd like it to be clarified. Is there a tree fund? Is there a tree policy? Does the money come from I mean, where does the money come from?
I'll go out on a limb and ask somebody.
Thank you, Councillor. We are working on updating the street tree policy, but we do have an annual planting budget. Ms Patterson probably have to take that on notice, which does pay for our street planting and our planting in parks across the local council area. But we're doing some further work, particularly in the CBD, around coming back to you with proposal around increasing tree canopy.
Okay, so could we have that information in the report that's going to come back?
Certainly, more
Please.
than happy to detail that. If Mr Nardan can move quickly, he might even be able to tell me what the tree planting budget is for 18-19.
I think he's looking into his computer.
Can I ask some questions?
Wait a moment. Councillor Haggerty, are you happy to put point 3 just to investigate the...
Yeah, whether it's point 3 or not, but that we have a look at the potential of trees to improve air quality.
Yeah, improve carbon neutrality.
So the Mayor had some, she had some good wording for that.
Yeah, so that we look at the numbers, investigate the numbers of trees needed to be planted to ensure we have a carbon neutrality within the LGA.
And then also for the report that's brought back to council to include the budget for the trees.
Can I suggest that we do step 1 first, and because the budget will fall out of that. You'll come back, you'll get a report and it says this is what's going to need to be done, and there'll be items attached to that. So I think it's not necessary to put that there because you're going to have to price everything. And so it will become an issue of priority, I would suggest to councillors.
Well, Madam
Yes,
Mayor, I
Councillor.
believe our current DCP has some things to do with the clearing the air. In regard of like charcoal chicken restaurants, there is a special equipment to clear the air. You have like the panel beater, you have the car painting, there has special equipment as well. And there is too many things, It's our current DCP
Well, we're going to
does
investigate.
cover it, you know what I mean?
We're going to investigate
So the best way, if you want to have like an investigation to see what more we can do, would be better, We can't start like putting something in place right now.
No.
Because there is some equipment, according to our current DCP, in this regard.
Okay.
Mayor,
Wait a minute. Councillor Haggerty, do you have a seconder for your...
I'm happy to second his
you,
motion
Councillor
on the
Rose.
provision that he's got.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Chitty.
Just a couple of points, if I may. On page 326, your last point, restrictions on the installation of and use of wood fire heaters in urban areas. That's going against what council just, we shouldn't really be worried about that anymore because we've just said put them in. So maybe we pull that out. And just in relation to number 2 altogether, point 1, modernising coal power stations. Whilst it's an issue for some and totally accept that some people are concerned, at the end of the day, we don't have any in Liverpool. We're using our council resources to, lobby state government for other issues or federal government, where we should just really focus on what's in our backyard, is my belief. High polluting emitting vehicles through the intermodal committee. We've done that before. We've received responses from state and feds, I think, or feds, one of the two, in relation to measures and everything else that they're doing. So they've already done that again. We're just doing what we've done previously. I don't understand the next one, so I won't comment on it. I'll move it foreshadowed, but just before that, a question. Was it and I don't know if it was a commitment or it was actually funding. I believe Minister Roberts was out giving us some money for trees. Was that for us recently? Might have been just a promise and not a...
I think it might have been just a promise. I think the only cheque I put in the bank recently was the library one.
All right, so the others, okay.
We're going to look at all of that.
Yeah.
Yes, keep going.
And if I can, talking about trees, those trees on Terminus Street that were chopped down, are they ever... I could have sworn we were told they were getting replaced because they were overhanging. We ripped them down. It's bare.
Yeah.
The street trees.
I'll have to take that on. I know the
They
trees.
look really bare.
I know the trees you're referring to. I think that's waiting on the adoption of the street tree planting policy for the CBD. But I'll take that on notice and get back to you.
And then can I foreshadow a motion?
What is your motion,
please?
Councillor?
George, if you don't mind. in relation to air, that'd be point 1. The one in relation to trees can be point 2. And then point 3 would be pending point 1, add in Councillor Haggerty's point 1. Yeah, so we've included the trees from Councillor Ayard. We've done the first one first, and then we do Councillor Haggerty's number 1 once number 1 of my one is done.
Okay.
If anyone understands that.
Yep. Okay, Councillor Chitty, is somebody seconding your motion?
I'll second, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor.
And I'll explain, or if I can speak to it, just so that
Yes,
and
speak.
totally understand and agree with all these things that we need to do. There's no issue there. A report was recently released in relation to the air quality, and it showed Liverpool having major issues during the Intermodal Committee. And again, we bring this forward. I bring this forward from the Intermodal Committee, and again, trying to push it before the election to start getting it through. The peer review won't be done, but there's a report on the table at the moment that said we're shocking. Apparently one of the governments, and I'm not sure if it was state or federal, David, has said that it's not credible. So what we do here, if we can, is peer review that report. We're using Cardno, for example, to do a lot of other works, if that's who you choose to go. I can't tell you who to use, obviously. Peer review that report, then that'll give us a solid basis and a ground to stand on to say, we know that our air is an issue, we see it, we read it, but now we may have facts and figures and everything else. Once we've peer reviewed that report and give it some credibility, we then go and do the next steps. There's no point doing work and then just getting a response saying you have no issue. I think if we do this in a step process, we probably will end up with a better outcome.
Thank you, Councillor. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Haggerty?
Yes, please. So, in response to some of the comments Councillor Hachidi made, the reason I've put point 1 the way it is because, and why I'm not in favour of his let's do a peer-reviewed report is a lot of the factors for why the air is so bad here aren't councils, and I don't want ratepayers' money being spent on telling us that, you know, the reason our air is so bad is because state and federal governments decide to plonk an intermodal, that we've got major highways with trucks that, you know, that the factors aren't our own. I don't want to spend ratepayers' money. So by writing to state and federal ministers, effectively they're going to come back with a response as to the validity or not of this report. Those 4 dot points are the recommendations of the report. So basically, can we get a response from state and federal ministers addressing the recommendations in the report? That's really what point 2 is.
Sorry, and I don't mean to interrupt, but hopefully we can get this right. Are you talking about the same report we're talking about?
Yes.
All right, so just in relation and why those words have come out of the Intermodal Committee, just so you're aware, and jump in any time, David, who's the officer in that meeting, either the state or the Fed, which one was it? Federal have already said we've discredited this report. So what I'm saying now is, if we're just going to use that report now again to go to the Feds, we're wasting our time, because they've already said we don't
trust the report.
We don't trust the report. So the whole idea was to then peer review the report, get the findings, because, sorry, with all respect, if you've got to do your point 1 now and to write to them again, I can tell you what the response is going to be. We've seen this before. We've said no, go away. So it's really, and word it how you want, but I think they've seen it, they've said no. What's the best way now forward? You can work it out, and I'm happy to support you.
Okay, thank you. All right.
And that was all through the chair?
Yes, it was, yeah. That's fine. So to go back to my other point, yes, there are no coal-powered power stations to my knowledge in the LGA, but they're the recommendations on the report, and I want a response on the recommendations of the report. I'll also note that air travels, so air may come from one place and wind can blow it to another.
We are in a basin.
Yes. Like, I think a lot of this has to do with geography. Yeah, that's all I've got to say about that. Either way, I think we're all on, if I'm reading correctly, we're all on board. We want some recommendation. Like, we want better air quality, and it's just about how we go about doing it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other speakers against?
I'll correct something, Mayor. Sorry, I said Feds. It was actually state, so I'm happy to pick
state
whoever.
government has said the report is not okay. All right, any other speakers?
I'll speak against the motion, not for the reason that I don't want to support it,
Mm-hmm.
but I think we're just going to go down the track of getting the response that we already know. The state has come out and said they've discredited it. They've done now, I believe, a newspaper article saying we don't believe this report. If we're going to base everything on this report, I can tell you now again, the outcome is going to be, we've seen it go away. If you want to do something and change it to ensure that we get a positive outcome, happy to support you, but I think that's a total waste of time.
Okay, thank you.
I will speak for Councillor Haggerty's motion.
Okay then.
Although I don't agree with everything that Councillor Haggerty has got in that motion, I'm extremely grateful that he has put in things that we can actually do, which is revise the DCP to correct and to do actual action for the Liverpool area. So on the strength of that, I'm supportive of Haggerty's motion.
Thank you, Councillor
Councillor
Haggerty's motion. Thank you. Any other speakers? Would you like your right of reply, Councillor Haggerty?
I would not. I'm happy for this to go to a vote.
Okay. All right. I'm going to put the motion as moved by Councillor Haggerty and seconded by Councillor Rhodes. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried.
Can I be recorded as voting against, Madam Mayor?
Yes, certainly. Of course you can. The next item is on page addendum booklet number 3. Page number 3. Maybe not.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move the motion as put with one amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Hull, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Well, I'll make the amendment to it first. It's an additional point after B, which is point C, that the councillor request reports results are also tabled in the agenda of council meetings.
That the councillor...
Councillor request reports results.
Okay.
Could I foreshadow a motion, Mayor?
Yes, just let me write. Okay, yes, Councillor, what is your...
Council receive and note the report.
Okay, thank you. We wish to speak to your motion, Councillor. Councillor Rhodes?
Yes, I do wish to speak to the motion. I can't understand why the councillor would object to councillor request reports not being included.
Councillor, that isn't debating.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, well, the problem is that in previous meetings of Liverpool Council, this was a meeting procedure that all correspondence in and out of the CEO's office was included into the agenda of council meetings. And this was a very transparent and very honest way for council to conduct their business. By putting it in the agenda, it's giving the opportunity for additional eyes to be able to see such matters, and it will minimise any sort of overlooking by councillors about pertinent matters, and it would certainly be in the best interest of the Liverpool community. The tabling of all council correspondence will restore the opportunity for all councillors to be fully informed and enable them to better perform with due diligence. The inclusion of all correspondence in and out of council is in the best interest, honesty and transparency, and it is in the best interest of the local community. I would really look for my councillors' support that we reinstate this procedure that was once a matter of course for council.
Thank you, Councillor.
Question, Mayor.
Yes, Councillor.
And if I can correct it, was the councillor request report ever reported to council? Because I just heard that it was previously done.
I'll look to Mr.
I'll
No.
answer
To
it
my
for you.
knowledge, certainly not while I've been on executive
Not
and
that
council.
I'm aware of, Councillor.
Through the Mayor, I wasn't referring to the councillor request reports. I can't see why councillors...
Councillor, you've had one bite at the cherry. Councillor Chitty is just asking for a clarification, which she received. Any other speakers for this motion?
Just a question, Madam
Yes,
Mayor. Is
Councillor.
there any privacy issues with the councillor request reports going into the agenda if it's ratepayer X contacted councillor Y and asked about potholes here and there or whatever? Just curious.
Councillor, the current report that councillors are provided is simply numerical. It simply says how many requests have come into each division and how many we've managed to action within the couple of generous days you allow us.
Thank you. Councillors, does anybody wish to speak against the motion?
Yeah, I will.
Thank you, Councillor.
I don't have an issue with most of it, but it's just easier to move to receive a note. In relation to the councillor request, apologies, councillor, but it's most residents go to a councillor when they choose, and that councillor acts for that resident. Sends through an email generally to the director or manager involved and CCs in councillor request and actions that item. When a resident contacts a councillor to action an item, there is a process in place for councillors that I think and I would hope most of us follow. So everything is logged and everything is transparent within the internal system. There have been times where I have made a councillor request, for example, and I was pretty upset with it, where it was then directed to another department without me knowing, and there was full investigation about this poor person making a complaint, because we're investigating all types of complaints, and the resident, for example, was then contacted by the Ombo saying, you know, I've investigated this and I've done all that, Ombo doing their job, without the resident being aware. And that resident was quite distressed in relation to, I just made a simple complaint about a footpath or whatever it was, and all of a sudden it turned into this, or can't remember what it was, and it turned into this big hoo-ha. Can you imagine putting responses and requests from our constituents in the public arena every month? So Joe Smith called me to fix their footpath, and we're now going to report that at that address. We've got measures in place at the moment. If anyone ever wants to make a Freedom of Information request, I'm sure this falls under it. They can pull up any information, any request that any councillor's got. But to publicise residents there, and I'm sure we'll blanket out their name, their address, what their issue was and everything else, I'm not sure what you're actually going to see under the Privacy Act, except I actually don't know what you can actually report. I don't support that bit, and I'm just happy with the way the system currently runs.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers for the motion besides Councillor Rhodes, who will get a right of reply in a moment?
I'm willing to make an adjustment to the motion.
You want to amend your motion?
Yes.
What is your amendment?
If people have got some sort of a problem with the request report results being tabled in the agenda, I'm willing to take that out. So if we take C back out,
delete,
and I'm
C.
moving the motion as put.
Okay, thank you. Any speakers? Yes, Councillor Haggerty.
I'd like to second Councillor Hachidi's motion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. No speakers. Councillor Rhodes, would you like to write a reply?
Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Councillor Hahn.
I would
speak away.
Sorry. I'd like to speak in support of it. At the moment, the only information we get on relevant correspondence matters is through the CEO's weekly update. And obviously there are issues in that maybe they shouldn't go out to the public, and I can see that. But at the same time, to be totally transparent, we should give the opportunity for the ratepayers to see what sort of correspondence is going between councillors and council and the mayor and the things that are actually happening at council. That isn't happening at the moment. That information is restricted into that CEO's update. And quite often there is information that I would like to give residents, but because it's in there, I tend to treat it as confidential. There's a lot of useful information in the CEO's weekly update that isn't going out to the public, and in my humble opinion should. For that reason, I would support that.
Thank you. You have your right to reply, Councillor Rhodes.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I think it's a matter of honesty, integrity and transparency for council.
Point of order, Mayor.
And I don't think I need to say...
Stop, Councillor. When a person calls point of order, you have to cease. Yes, Councillor.
Was it honesty, integrity, something else?
Yes.
From the sounds of it, Councillor Rhodes is questioning the integrity of, I assume, the CEO and staff. I am offended, and the integrity of the CEO is paramount, and I don't believe it should be called into question.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Well, first of all, Councillor, I rule on his point of order, then I can take yours. I think Councillor Rhodes probably needs to temper her language, which I will ask her to do. Will you temper your language so that people aren't offended?
Well, Madam Mayor, it is not my intention.
Yes or no, councillor?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Can I
Now,
explain
what is
myself?
your point of order?
My point of order was that it has been misinterpreted. I'm not accusing anybody. All I'm saying
Hold on,
is...
what's your point of order?
My point of order is that the councillor Haggerty has misinterpreted the intention of what I said. I did not accuse anybody. I did not accuse any council staff.
Councillor, that's not really a point of order, that's a personal opinion.
No,
Can
well,
I
it's not a
say
personal...
to you that you have agreed to temper your language, continue your debate?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that what this particular piece of motion is doing is just restoring a previous good part of council meeting procedure. It is in the interest of honesty and transparency, and I cannot understand why a councillor would not endorse such a motion. And I put it again that the councillors support this motion in the good intention that it was intended to improve the information transfer to the community and also give the opportunity for councillors to fully understand things that are going on at council and have more eyes on information that is otherwise not provided to the community. So I would dearly ask that the councillors support this motion.
Thank you, councillor.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, Mayor.
No.
Please?
No.
All right.
No. I'm going to put the motion as moved by councillor Rhodes and seconded by councillor Hall. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it lost. I'll put the foreshadowed motion. Okay. Those in favour of councillor Rhodes and councillor Hall's motion, please stand. Those against, please stand. The motion's lost. I'll put the foreshadowed motion as moved by councillor Chitty and seconded by councillor Haggerty. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Next item's on page 878. Remember, it's a confidential item.
CON 01?
Yep, that's it. On page 878. It's in this one. Thank you, councillor. Seconded.
Question.
Wait a minute. Seconded. Thank you, councillor Haggerty. Yes, question.
Right.
Remember, it's confidential, councillor.
Yes, the issues with this is the issues with the fill on the site, and we're talking about the contamination. There is another site, Kelso Park. There is a track there that has similar problems, I understand. You may be aware. What's happening there? Are we making...
Excuse me, councillor. While I appreciate your curiosity, my suggestion is stick to the motion. We're moving off into other parts. This motion is about this particular one, and I ask you to indulge me by concentrating on this motion. We can ask the council staff after the meeting, or we're going into closed session and you could probably ask then. Okay, so I'm going to move the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Next item's on page 881. Yep, sure. Moving formally by councillor Chitty, seconded by councillor Carnib. I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Circle it so I don't forget it.
Am I given the opportunity to come back?
Oh, sorry, councillor. I forgot that one. Saw you wander off. It's all right. You didn't miss anything. The item that actually came up is going into closed session. Yeah. No, nothing happened. No. No. Confo 2 is going into closed session with NOM01. Next item is on page 923.
Move that way.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Who said that? Councillor Calienda, Councillor Haggerty and Councillor Calienda. Any discussion? I'll put it. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Next item's on page 926.
Suggest we
Can I
move
read
this one
mine?
into closed as well.
You want to get moved that way? Yes, Councillor
Yeah.
Haggerty moving. Seconded, Councillor Chitty. Okay, I'll put it. Those in favour, those against, declare it carried. We will now move into closed session because of personnel matters and probably commercial and confidence matters, maybe, but it's definitely personnel matters. So there'll be 1, 2, 3 items. So the meeting will now be closed to the public.